There was a chapter on history, and one of the things that Sundarananda Vidyavinod was troubled by was a historian, a Bengali historian who'd written a book about the history of Orissa. And in that history of Orissa, he said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ruined Orissa. He said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because of all this, bhakti, what he did was he weakened King Prataparudra. He influenced Prataparudra, and up to that time Prataparudra was a very powerful military ruler. He was fighting wars with Hussein Shah in the north, and he was fighting wars with Krishna Chandra Rai in the south, and so he was practically all the time having wars. So his army was strong, and there was the culture and the society was strongly militarized. And then what happened was that he became a bhakta, and he lost it, I guess is what they say. So that when Prataparudra died, a few short years later, only 8 years, there was, first of all, Prataparudra died very soon after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then after he died, there was a mess. The succession was a mess. There was one of his ministers the son overthrew the son, and then the minister took over, and he was not a particularly good king. And so the kingdom fell into disarray. And then the Muslims from the north, from Bengal, who'd attacked several times, because we know that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was coming through Orissa for the first time after taking sannyas, that there was a war going on. There was a war going on both ends. Prataparudra was being attacked from the north, and he was being attacked from the south. So he was running back and forth. And finally, but they never were successful. Prataparudra managed to throw them off, and actually there are some pretty strange stories that we don't have in Chaitanya Charitamrita that happened at that time. The Muslims stole the Jagadananda deity and burnt him, and so on. But what happened was that after Prataparudra died, that within 8 years, the Muslims attacked Jagannath Puri, and this time they really ransacked it badly. They really desecrated. This is the time that they took the Jagannath deity and burned it, and they took in the Jagannath deity. The Jagannath deity is made out of wood, but inside they have a shalagram shila or something that is its life, the prana of the Jagannath deity. So they saved that, and that was so. Even though they took the wooden idol or the wooden deity, they managed to save the shalagram that was inside and keep it, so that was not desecrated. But so then the kingdom was overrun by the Muslims, and after that they lost their independence. Orissa, which had been a proud and independent Hindu kingdom, one of the few in all of India, after Mahaprabhu left, became a conquered state, part of the all-Indian, pan-Indian Mughal Empire. Now, the historian, I think his name is Prabhat Mukherjee, if I'm not mistaken, he said, well, that the problem with that is that is all this religion and this bhakti. That bhakti effeminized, the bhakti made the king Prataparudra more feminine, and because of that he was less aggressive militarily, and because of that the kingdom, the military rule was weakened, and it was not a good idea to be weak in the face of Muslim aggression. They had to keep a strong protection against the Muslim kingdom. And actually, later on I realized that he was just copying, this historian was just copying Gibbon, who wrote about the fall of the Roman Empire. And he says exactly the same thing. He says that the Christians ruined the Roman Empire. So that the Roman Empire was very, very powerful, but when the Christians came in, then they started with this love business, and saying that God is love, and that we should love one another. And when all this business about love started to be bandied about, then the Roman Empire became weak. And so very short, only a few years after the Christianization of the Roman Empire, the Goths and Visigoths and Huns and other, tribes from the north, the Germanic tribes, came and destroyed the Roman Empire. So, of course, but this is not something new, right? Because if you come to, even if you come more close to the modern day, Friedrich Nietzsche is probably the most, outspoken philosopher who wrote against Christianity and against religion altogether, saying that it tells you to be humble, it tells you to be kind, it tells you to be generous, it tells you to take care of the weakest people in society, right? In the Christian religion, you have ideas that you should help the poor people, you should visit the prisoners, that you should take care of the widows and things like this. You take care of the most vulnerable people in society. So they say, Nietzsche, he comes along and says, well, you protect the most vulnerable people in society. What you're doing is you're weakening the society. Especially after Darwin and the theory of evolution, which says the theory of evolution is the survival of the fittest. So if the society is based, if evolution is based on the survival of the fittest, that the most fit people are the ones that are going to survive, and if the whole race is dependent on the survival of the fittest, then therefore we should actually get rid of all the weak ones.
Hitler did this.
Yes, Hitler. This is exactly this kind of philosophy led to Hitler, and other fascisms are like that also. See, so even now, one of the biggest ironies in modern religion is that especially the modern religion that's in America, the Christian religion, what is the so-called Christian religion in America, and the way that Protestantism, that American Protestantism has developed, that they're very much, they formed a political alliance with these same kind of people. They call themselves her name is Ayn Rand. She's an atheistic philosopher who preached exactly this kind of doctrine, saying that why should we give the poor people any money? We're just encouraging them to be poor. If they can't survive on their own, if you don't give them any help, then they have to survive on their own. If you give them help, then they don't. You're just confirming them in their weakness. So we don't want to. We want a society where there's competition, and where only the strong survive. Let the weak die. If they die of starvation, what's the problem? There's nothing wrong with that. We're rooting out the weak genetic code, which is, of course, totally false. And we can discuss and say that. But basically, what we're saying is we're taking the opposite side. We're saying, especially now, we're saying, listen, friends, the society has gone over too far in that direction. Okay? Now, for instance, even in Western society, that women are being obliged more and more and more to sacrifice the feminine qualities in order to, compete with men in the marketplace for jobs and so on and so forth. So you have men who are women. It's not. I'm not. This is the way things have developed, and in some ways there's a beneficial side to it also. But if everybody becomes masculinized, then how does that help the global, the world picture as the world in general, right? So we think that right now the world is facing enough problems due to exploitation and due to the hyper masculinization of humanity. You know, the idea that we can exploit everything, that we can own everything, that we can squeeze every last bit of you know, personal profit out of everything that exists, out of every natural resource that is present, until we've destroyed everything, until there's nothing left, and then, you know, the planet, you know, your environment goes, you know, you have ruined your environment and everything else. So I'm calling it masculinization and feminization. But I'm not the first to have done that. Nowadays we kind of steer clear of that, mainly because of feminism. Feminism doesn't like that any quality should be identified as a feminine quality or as a masculine quality. And in actual fact, every one of us is mixed with both of them anyway. But still, we say that the feminine, we do accept that the feminine bhakti is the essential feminine quality. And we see that this is exactly, if you look at the symbolism of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, this is exactly what why do we glorify Radha? What is it about Radha? It's the, you know, I asked here the other day about Radha, and who is Radha? She's the personification of the deity, or the embodiment of pure love. So we don't, you know, even though sometimes we say that God is love, and we think of God in masculine terms, God the Father, right? That God the Father is love, like a loving father. But generally speaking, the love of the father and the love of the mother, we know that there's in terms of where we have a sentiment, you know, where we have the feeling, where the feeling of love is experienced most strongly. You know, the Father, we have to believe in His love more or less on faith. We experience it indirectly in a way, that He's providing, or whatever, in the traditional system, that He's providing something that makes it. But generally speaking, the Father is a, you know, this is exactly where Freudian psychology is based on the fact that the Father is a bit of an ambiguous figure. The mother, we know, you know, she's there, she's giving me breast milk, she's doing, you know, she's carrying me around, she's feeding me, she's taking care of me, she's teaching me, she's doing, you know, the mother is an unambiguous figure of love. The father pops in every few days or every few hours, you know, and in the past he wouldn't even take the child in his lap most of the time, you know. He would maybe look for a few minutes and then go on, right? So that was the kind of thing. So just all I'm saying here just is that the idea of feminine and masculine are useful categories. We don't necessarily have to take them as absolute categories. I'm not saying that when we talk about feminine and masculine, it doesn't mean that every single woman is somehow or another the exact embodiment of Radharani, that every man is in some other way takes on the masculine, is necessarily affected by the negative aspects of the masculine character. But the specific qualities pertaining to the genders, to the sexes, that these things are being used to communicate. They're being used to communicate certain ideas. When Krishna says to Durvasa that Vashi kurvanti mam bhaktya satpating satstriyo yatha. Now, we're giving up these categories. We're trying to avoid, this is the thing, in modern society, feminine and masculine characteristics are simultaneously being continued. The stereotypes are being continued, and at the same time they're being fought against as being false. In one sense, the people, like for instance, feminists, continue to promote stereotypes of masculine, particularly of the masculine side. You know, who does the raping? Right, it's men. So you know the kinds of problems that come out of the masculine side of the human race. In the one sense, we continue to harp on them and continue to emphasize them. At the same time, we try to deny them and try to pretend that they're not there. So it's a confused situation. We're in a confused state right now. And the confused state is such, and it's leading to philosophies in right now, like the be yourself philosophy. You know? So be yourself. So be yourself means that the idea that there is nothing predicated about who you are, about your personality or about your consciousness, that nothing is predicated, that everything is, you can be whatever you want to be, you know, sexual orientation, etc., whatever, you know, you can, if you want, you can change your sex now, become transgendered, and so on. And you know, nobody wants to be stereotyped as either male or female. People want to be, you know, want to be metrosexual or something. You know, that there's a kind of a freedom from the constraints that gender places on us. But in actual fact, you know, Freud said that biology is destiny. He said biology is destiny, and he was talking about the genders. He was talking about the sexes. And most of the psychologists, up until like Piaget and so on, you know, looking at child behavior and so on, you know, they said just that your biology is your destiny. You have a particular biology, a particular physiology, and your physiology almost, you know, is predictive of certain kinds of behavior. Men are more extroverted because of, you know, because their physical apparatus is extroverted, and women's physical apparatus is introverted. So you know, they have a, you know, the woman is going to encircle and enclose and hold and create home, and you know, wants to have the enclosed system. The man wants, you know, rocket ships and going out into the world, and you know, his movement is outward. So we see that in you know, like for instance in Islam especially, you have you know, they try to enforce this as a, you know, an obligatory, that everybody is constrained by the absolute necessity to conform to that particular gender role, which is also a very bad thing, you know. So the men are allowed to go outside, and women can't go outside at all. And if they do go outside, they have to, you know, keep themselves totally covered. But this is, you know, not working out very well, I don't think, in the Muslim world, to be honest with you. Yeah, go ahead. I'm totally off Radharani here. I'm very sorry, but perhaps, you know, but I mean, I think that this is kind of a basic tool for understanding a bit of why we think what we're thinking. Why are we glorifying Radha? Why is it that we put, you know, give so much emphasis to Radha, and we're saying, not only just saying Radha, but we're saying that Krishna is surrendered to Radha. You know, what is the significance of that? Why is that happening? It's not just because, why wouldn't it could have been done the other way, and it has been done the other way, that the woman surrenders to the man. Now we got the man surrendering to the woman. You know, because if we may say that Krishna is not a man, or Radharani is not a woman, but that doesn't make any sense. We have to accept the language, what it says. Radha is always described as a female. When we're reading Govinda Lilamrita, is there any doubt, you know, about you know, who's who here, you know? And just even like last night, you left early, so you didn't see the best part of it. Because then they did it afterwards. They did the Leela of now. And this is you know, these Leelas are so traditional. You have to. One of and this is actually told in Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. This is where I don't know if that's the first case, but in Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka, in the third act, there's a play within a play. And one of the stories, I have this on my blog, that I told all these stories, that in Chaitanya Leela, there is an incident that happened when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was still in Navadvip. You know, that's only, a lot of people don't realize that Mahaprabhu was only in Navadvip for 13 months after he went to Gaya, and between that time and he took sannyas. Some people have a tendency to think that was years and years and years, because in Chaitanya Bhagavat, that's the biggest chapter, right? The big Madhya Leela, Madhya Kanda, is the longest section, and that just covers that Navadvip Leela. But that was only a period of 13 months. Anyhow, during that period of time, there was one time when Mahaprabhu said, we're going to put on a play at Chandrasekhar's house. So that play at Chandrasekhar's house, it's told, the story is told in each one of the biographies, Murari Gupta's Karcha, and in Chaitanya Bhagavat, and in the Chaitanya Mangal, and also in Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka, and also in the Chaitanya Chandramrita Mahakavya of Kavi Karnapur. So the five different stories of the play in Chandrasekhar's house, and each one of them is different. Each one of them is totally different. So when the story is told in the Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka, then he tells the story of the Krishna, the gopis are coming and picking flowers in Krishna's garden. This is directly taken from Krishna Kirtan by Chandidas. It's directly taken from Chandidas, but of course it's sophisticated a little bit more because it's in Sanskrit and so on. But the original story comes from Chandidas. And Krishna, in Chandidas, in Sri Krishna Kirtan, what happens is that Krishna is having, he's trying to get Radharani and not having much success. And each time he gets makes a little bit of progress, then she goes and, her in-laws lock her up in the house and don't let her out. And certainly don't let her go to Mathura with the milk products and sell milk in the market. So Krishna doesn't know what to do. So finally Krishna he starts to make a plan, and his plan is basically he's going to make a garden. So he goes into and creates Vrindavan. That's what he creates, Vrindavan. And so he goes in Vrindavan, he plants all kinds of beautiful, beautiful trees and flowers and everything everywhere. And then when Radharani and the gopis come to pick the flowers, then he comes and harasses them again and tells them, what are you doing? This is my forest, and so on. So what always happens, this same story is even told again in a slightly different way, but it's a part of the whole Dan Leela, set of Leelas, where Krishna basically acts like a bit of a aggressive and not necessarily such a pleasant fellow. But the way we understand it is that it's a game, of course. That there's teasing going on, there's flirting going on, and in general it's very humorous and enjoyable. And so when they did this last night, the gopis come, Krishna's prepared the forest. He really is waiting for Radha to come. And Purnamasi has arranged for them to come to pick flowers. And then when they come to pick flowers, then Krishna comes storming out and says, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? What are you doing here? Who gave you the right to pick flowers here? And then the gopis, then they come back and they say, who do you think you are? Who gave you this forest? What's really nice about that in a way is that, that you see that the women are not without their own power. And it was kind of funny because they do it, the way they did it last night was that the Krishna, he's standing on one side and he comes storming forward. And then all the gopis, they come storming back and Krishna has to retreat. And so then he comes storming back, they're going back and forth across the stage, like that. And finally what happened was, that the gopis, they said, they're arguing, and so the gopis said that Radha is actually the owner of the forest. She's the queen of Vrindavan forest. So this is this is how the story develops. And they say that Radharani is the actual owner of this forest, not Krishna. Krishna is claiming that he's the owner, and Radharani is claiming that she's the owner. So this is the same thing in Dan Keli Komedi. The same thing happens there. And of course. I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot of material at you, but Jiva Goswami wrote his first book. The first book that Jiva Goswami wrote was Madhava Mahotsav, and the purpose of Madhava Mahotsav is to describe Radharani's Abhishek, that all the goddesses and all the gods, but mostly the goddesses, all the rivers are all feminine goddesses, and all the queen, the goddesses of the heavens, and Shivani and Indrani and all the rest, they all came down to to consecrate Radha as the queen of Vrindavan. So and even Krishna then came and gave his fealty to the queen. So but in the play last night they were pushing back and forth who is the best, and finally the gopis, the most vociferous gopi, I don't know which one it was, I think it was Champakanlata. But anyway, she turns around to the audience and says, she tells Krishna, "We'll show you who is the queen of Vrindavan." Right? And she says, and she goes like, "Jai Radhe!" And all the audience people, everybody in the audience raised their hands as Jai Radhe. And she did it again, Jai Radhe. And Krishna said something like, no, they're just lifting their hands because it's too hot or something. He's trying to make some excuse of why everybody raised their hands and said Jai Radhe. But finally then Krishna has to give in and say, all right, I give up. I'm also, if everyone here is a servant, is a subject of the Queen of Vrindavan, of Radharani, then I also accept that. That's my position too. So he said, go ahead, take all the flowers you want. You can take all the flowers you want. I'm not going to stop you. I just want one flower, and that's it. I want Radha. So I forget what I was going with that. Oh, the play so this is in the play of Chandrasekhar's house. That's the story, that's the description that also comes from there. That's the story that's told, that Mahaprabhu put on that play. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's quite different. But even in Chaitanya Bhagavat, if you read in Chaitanya Bhagavat, there Nityananda, the role that Nityananda plays the role of the Burai, the Buri. They call her Borai, or Burai, or just Buri. So Buri means old lady, Vritha. So the Borai, so that Borai later on in the expansion of the Leela becomes Purnamasi and becomes Mukhara. She kind of divides her role. Mukhara is Radharani's grandmother, right? And Purnamasi she's the disciple, she's the mother of Sandipani Muni. And she's the grandmother of Madhu Mangal and so on. So, in here in Vrindavan, when they do the Ras Leela, they make Purnamasi Madhu Mangal's mother. But I don't like that. I don't think that's proper. Purnamasi is, but she's still the grandmother. At any rate, Purnamasi is an old woman, and Mukhara is also an old woman. But Mukhara is a bit of a foolish old woman, and Purnamasi is a wise old woman. Purnamasi, she knows all the magic spells, and she's always the one. She's Yoga Maya. So first of all, she lives in a little cottage outside the village. Just like in the old times, in an Indian village, you would have the people, the regular part of the village, and then some sadhu or saint. They would live usually beside a big, banyan tree. There would be a big banyan tree at the outside of the town, and that banyan tree would always be a sacred spot, because they didn't necessarily have temples, in a small village, but the sacred spot would be the banyan tree. And if you go to any village, I don't know if you see that, even here in Vrindavan, you still see some of the banyan trees. You see that people, paint the base of the tree, and there might be some figurines or something there, or some marks on the tree itself, and a little kind of an altar placed in the root, or in a concave cavity in the tree. And so, that they'll put some kind of an altar there, and they'll burn lamps and other things at that place. So the banyan tree, being a sacred tree, would be a